An absolute ton of news for 11.1, and season 2 has actually dropped today, and I thought today was going to be a great time to kind of take all of the news that we've seen over the past 48 hours or so, in addition to a lot of the news that we've seen come out today in regards to 11.1, and kind of talk about it all together. First and foremost, we had this Crest change that happened 8 days ago, where this is already live on patch 11.0.7, but Blizzard actually came through and changed acquisition process of Crests by a lot, and how players are going to be utilizing Crests not only just right now, but also the starting point for Season 2. First and foremost, they made the number of Gilded Harbinger Crests needed to purchase the crafting Nascent Gilded Harbinger Crest, reducing that to 60, which was previously 90. This is a pretty good change. This was a situation where it was very difficult to craft any pieces. You were basically paying your entire week's worth of Crest budget in order to craft pieces, and you were basically never crafting. Now you are going to be back kind of similar to what we had in Dragonflight, where you're always crafting pieces, and crafting pieces are actually fairly solid, especially while you are banking up weeks of the vault. I think this is a good change. I thought it was a little bit weird that you weren't crafting at all in Season 1 of War Within, and I think that after having seen it play out, I would prefer them go back to this. Now, gold cost-wise, it sucks. Basically, I'm somebody who has enough resources gold-wise to allow this to be fine. I could empathize with somebody who doesn't, but I think in general, this is a pretty good change. Also, number of Harbinger Crests needed to purchase trade-up bags reduced to 45 was 90. This is only relevant to whenever you have maxed out the previous track. So, for example, whenever you've maxed out heroic crests and you're upgrading them to the gilded crests, I think that this is good then. Beyond that, it's never really good to trade up, especially if you still need that lower level of crests. So this is kind of a niche thing, but, it is what it is. Harbinger, the Gilded achievement now requires item level 636 in every single slot, was previously 639. So the crafting level equivalent allows you to get Harbinger of the Gilded. That's an absolutely phenomenal change. That was a big complaint about players. They just weren't able to actually get this achievement. In addition to that, you have currency rewards that are now scaled by keystone level, and completing a keystone outside the timer always deducts 4 crests from that. So now, if you do a 12, you're getting 20 crests. If you deplete a 12, you get 16. And if you time a 10, you get 16, where if you deplete it, you get a 12, which was previously what you got. This, I think, is a great change. I don't think that this is like, a one-size-fits-all solution. I think that one of my biggest complaints was how long the grind of Crest catch-up was, but that's for a very small subset of players that are looking to basically grind a full crafted set of gear on Gilded. But in general, this allows you to actually get enough Gilded Crest fast enough to where you are able to get your character geared up, especially if you want to start it late. And for players who are keeping their character current, more crests is always better. I'm not going to complain too much about this. And now having this be the starting off point for Season 2, I think this is a phenomenal change. In addition to that, what we saw 58 minutes ago is Gilded Crests are available from Delves in the War Within Season 2. Admittedly, I haven't read through this, so let's do a gut reaction to this kind of thing. So first and foremost, I think this is maybe... Delves aren't exactly the hardest thing ever, so it kind of depends on how many Gilded Crests you're getting from Delves. You get them from tier 11s from Delves Bounty, tier 8. Okay. There's also a question as to what's going to happen to the Bountiful Keys. Are those rolling over from Season 1 to Season 2? Could you just bank those up and then just go in and do your Delves and then actually get all the Gilded Crests that you need from that week? It doesn't say how many Gilded Crests you're actually going to get from this. We're unsure of how to get the higher tier crests, and there might be restrictions, but right now this information is data mine only. I'm not super in love with this. I don't think that... I think that like Gilded Crests should be coming from like non-trivial content. Historically, they've been coming actually from group content that's non-trivial, which I'm not in love with the concept of them coming from, Delves, but at the same point, I kind of play the game differently from everybody else as well, and so like I don't really care too much if I don't care too much if everybody has the access to the Gilded Crests, right? I don't think that it necessarily needs to be gatekept, because like for me, I think that Blizzard's content should stand on its own, and there's no need for it to like be this weird gatekeepy thing where you're still gonna have to get a lot of the pieces from the vault. There's still gonna be, you're gonna have to either do Mythic Raid or do +10s to actually be able to get the vault pieces, and this only allows you to craft it. In general, though, it's maybe, at least on my perspective, I feel like a delve is about the same difficulty as like a normal level raid or like a heroic level raid, and so that feels kind of weird that you're getting Gilded Crest from that. But you know, it is what it is. Next up, we have threat buffs for tanks in patch 11.0.7. Great. I think that I still have an issue with tank threat where I don't think that like buffing tank threat is just the solution that needs to be applied here, right? They are buffing tank threat by 22%, which is a ton. What would you do if you're not a, you know, prot paladin this season playing with an Aug Evoker that has timelessness on your enhancement shaman? You're probably just losing threat to that enhancement shaman, assuming that they are able to burst and do enough damage. I don't think that buffing threat is enough of a solution long term. Now, I think it also kind of comes down to how much damage the tank is doing relative to the DPS, but this season of Enhancement Shaman is one of the highest burst DPS specializations that we've ever seen in the game, and what happens whenever another version of that comes along and the tanks still aren't able to hold threat? It makes it feel a little bit weird, and it makes it feel really bad for the player who's playing that specialization that has to burst DPS. I think that, you know, increasing tank threat is just generically a pretty good change. I think that I would have loved for the system to be a little bit rethought in terms of how tanks are maintaining threat. I think that just like generically, if your tank is hitting a pack of trash and they're actively hitting the pack of trash, they're probably supposed to have threat on the mobs. Now, this doesn't include like them kiting the pack. They're not 20 yards away from the mobs. If they're actively hitting and contributing globals to the pack, I think that most people tend to agree that they should have threat. But we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. It might end up being a non-issue with whenever the tank threat gets buffed by 22%, where it's really actually hard to rip off of the tank. But anything that avoids my Augmentation Evoker from having to run Timelessness so my DPS don't rip, that's also pretty good. Because I think that Timelessness is such a garbage talent that it shouldn't be the best option to Timelessness a DPS to make sure they're not ripping threat. Next up, Dinar's return as new rewards in Galio Loyalty Raid Renown track. So it looks like there's a Renown track that is attached to the raid or the new zone. And this track includes raid buffs, augment runes, and eventually a Dinar-like currency to purchase the exact item you want. Holy shit, this is actually phenomenal. I love this because first off, augment runes, 1,000 gold apiece. Way too expensive, just frankly. Stacking raid buff. I think the stacking raid buff, the severed strands that you're getting from raid currently, I actually really like it. I think it does a pretty good job of nerfing the raid over time in conjunction with just gear. And I feel like it's made this raid feel a lot better just as a whole. Now, I haven't done a lot of prog, but the bosses that I have been killing, I'm actually a huge fan of the stacking raid buff just over time. And then a Dinar-like currency. I've been considering raiding again, and I might still raid again, but a Dinar-like currency does make me start to think, do I really need to raid? Because whenever you look at my lizard, the item that I wanted by far the most is this Spymaster's Web. And I would have loved to have this on a myth track, but I'm not ever killing Silken Court unless I'm in a mythic raid group, which, you know, that's just the price you pay. And I was kind of aware of this coming into the season, and I was like, hey, you know, it's not that big of a deal. But the fact that I'm now going to have a Dinar at Renown 17 and a Dinar at Renown 19 is a huge benefit to players like myself who are not raiding cutting-edge mythic, but still want to be competitive. And I think, frankly, Blizzard likes to print a lot of really cool items. And I think that something that happens with these really cool items is some players just aren't going to be able to get them because they're normally locked behind the raid. But now having Dinars available at Renown 17 and 19 allows the players, especially as they progress on into the patch, it allows them the opportunity to get these Dinars, to get those really cool items. I don't think it's something that they should actually be having like really early on in the season, but I think that assuming that a Renown 17 or Renown 19 happens pretty late-ish into the season, there's no reason to really gatekeep those items from those players any longer. Augmentation Evoker can no longer buff tanks and healers in patch 11.1. This is a great change. I think that I have been somebody who's been stuck in Aug prison, self-inflicted, of course, where I want to get invited to groups, but Augmentation Evoker is one of those specializations that's basically needed for high keys. And one of the big reasons is because it gives your healer and your tank primary stat. It increases the group survivability just by a bunch with that additional primary stat gain. Now, Blizzard's going to be looking to remove the effectiveness of Ebonite and Breath of Eons on the tank and the healer, but make it 25% more effective on the other DPS in your group. And they added closest clutchmates back. I think that this is now going to be looked at more similarly to how a DPS is operating and less similarly to this universal specialization that has to be required for every single group. And I think that this is going to be a pretty good change long term. And hopefully fingers crossed, I can come back to Moonkin now, and I won't have to maintain an Augmentation Evoker, or maybe I'll just play whatever Fodom DPS there is, but it won't be Augmentation Evoker again, because I think that Augmentation Evoker is a really tough specialization to balance, because for like lower end keys, it's always been deemed as like pretty low damage and pretty bad because they're not individually contributing. But for high keys, it's always like one of the better DPS and required. And I think that there is this weird dynamic that whenever it affects your tank and your healer, that's always going to kind of be in place. And now this allows them to balance them more effectively, in my opinion, and have them closer balance wise. They might still be good. They can always just buff Augmentation Evoker to where it does comparable damage to other DPS, as they should. They should continue to balance the specialization. But now this is unlikely to be an auto pick for high-end keys universally. In addition to this, we have role-based gear tier sets now. So the 2-set bonus, basically what Blizzard says, with the new raid comes new gear sets and set bonuses, and these gear sets are themed around the magnificent Galagio. I'll have to check that later. But anyways, Galagio. Whether or not you're a tank that wants a little bit more luck of the draw, or a healer that needs a little bit more insurance, the 2-set bonuses are going to be unique per role, but the 4-set bonuses are going to be unique per specialization. There should be something for everyone. Basically, how it works is all of the healers are going to have basically the same 2-set bonus. And the 2-set bonus is your healing spells have a chance to apply insurance to their target, and that heals them for 800,000 over 15 seconds. Insurance is consumed if an ally drops below 40% health to heal them for 386,000. And for tanks, it's each time you take damage, you have a chance to cast Shield Wall. This is their wall style effect. You know, it'd be like Survival Instincts for Bear Druid. It'd be like whatever. It just, you know, it's their Shield Wall style effect. They're 40% DR, Ardent Defender, something like that, for 4 seconds, and gain Luck of the Draw, which increases your damage dealt by 15% for 10 seconds. And, you know, these things are going to be blanket for every single specialization in the game, where then your 4-set is based around your spec. I'm not in love with this. So basically, we can look at the DPS bonuses as well, because we have all of those data mined. All the range DPS have the same bonus, and all the melee DPS have the same bonus. The range DPS bonus is your damaging spells have a chance to hit a jackpot, which ends up, you know, throwing a specific spell or growing a wild mushroom at nearby enemy's location at 100% effectiveness. For Augmentation Evoker, it's like your damaging spells have a chance to hit a jackpot, causing an upheaval at 100% effectiveness. Those are the kind of things that it works at. It also works off of whenever you press your cooldowns, you also get a jackpot at the exact same time. For melee DPS, your spells and abilities have a chance to activate a winning streak, increasing the damage of some of your spenders, and that ends up stacking up to 10 times, and those spenders will have a 15% chance to remove winning streak. And, you know, this happens with Blade Dance as well, where it increases your Blade Dance and Chaos Strike by 1%, stacking up to 10 times. Blade Dance and Chaos Strike have a 15% chance to remove winning streak. And so that's how it kind of works, with the 4-set being more spec specific. And you can check out what your tier sets are in the description down below if you want to look at what your specific tier set is. How I feel about this is I'm not in love with the 2-set bonus being like this. Some of the coolest iterations of World of Warcraft specializations involve their tier sets a lot of the time. And as you've seen time and time again, tier sets and old tier sets are moved into spec class trees for spec trees for how they actually design the specialization, because some of these tier set bonuses have just been such a massive hit. And whenever you're removing the 2-set bonus and only showing off the 4-set bonus that as it relates to the spec, I don't think this is great. I think it reduces a lot of the flavor. I'm not in love with how this feels to play. Now, I think that the 4-set bonus is going to have to do a lot of heavy lifting. This might be something that we look back on in 6 months and be like, it probably didn't matter. But as it currently stands, just my gut reaction is I actually like the things that are more flavored and tailored towards my specific kit. And the things that are, you know, this winning streak and this blanket effect that has to be tailored to every single specialization feels kind of similar to those generic Azurite traits or the Shards of Domination. I felt very specific to those generic traits that had to be balanced relative to one another, and I'm not in love with those kind of things. I didn't think that those effects were very great, but again, this might be something that in 6 months we kind of take a look back on and we're like, it was fine. In addition to that, Season 2 Mythic Plus changes, new and reworked affixes, new achievement for no depletes. This is speculative. Blizzard has announced new and reworked affixes for Season 2 of Mythic Plus, and no depletes with a new achievement and more. With this wording, this could either mean keystones that are in the range of 2 to 11 can no longer deplete, or keystones are at plus 12 can no longer deplete until 12. What does this mean? Keystones that are at plus 12 and plus can no longer deplete until 12. Oh, okay. So if you're If you're going above a 12, it can no longer deplete until 12. That is so weird. So there's like a checkpoint there. I'm not in love with the second one. Hopefully it's this first one. This first one makes a lot more sense. The new account-wide achievement in the War Within Keystone Legends Season 2. Attain a Mythic Plus rating of at least 2850 in the War Within Season 2. Reward failing to clear a Mythic Plus dungeon within the time rule will no longer reduce the level of your Keystone below 12 for the season. Okay, so yeah, it sounds like the 12 is like the checkpoint where keys above 12 will deplete, but anything below that will not deplete. Keystone from the weekly vault will not decay below 12 with this achievement, and keystones can still be lowered below level 12 by speaking to Lindormi. Nice. Affixes. Unified enemies buff on all Zaltat's bargain affixes with Zaltat's gift, increasing the damage done by up to 50% and reducing damage taken by up to 100% for 20 seconds on all enemies in combat. Unified enemy with Zaltat's gift. So this is a new one. It's called Zaltat's gift is what it sounds like. Interesting. Oh, I see what's going on here. New affix, Zaltat's bargain, Pulsar. While in combat, Zaltat summons pulsars that orbit the players, replaces Oblivion in Season 2. Zaltat's Guile has been redesigned, now causes keystones above level 12 to increase in health and damage of enemies by 12% per level instead of 10% per level. This is a weird use of the word redesigned. I would not describe it as a redesign. It's the exact same, except just buffed. It's probably fine. 2020 was way too hard. At 1010, it's fine. Hopefully at 1212, it's fine. Zaltat's Bargain Voidbound has been redesigned. So this is the ad that summons. Dark Prayer now has a 15-second cast time and grants all nearby enemies in combat Zaltat's gift when the cast completes. No longer grants damage reduction while active. Oh, that's what the Zaltat's gift is. Uh-huh. Okay, so you have to kill the Voidbound. This makes sense now. You have to kill the Voidbound before the 15-second cast, otherwise they get the Zaltat's gift, increasing the damage taken and makes them do more damage. Potency of Zaltat's gift granted by Dark Prayer is based on the remaining shield percentage of the Void Emissary. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, and that was all the stuff that we saw. I think that this final change for the affixes are good. I think that the affixes and the affix system just in general has been fairly solid, but they need to continue to iterate on it as a whole. And I think that iterating on it over time is something that we're going to see over the course of this expansion. But I think that overall, a lot of good changes coming for 11.1. I think the only thing that I'm not super in love with is the tier set stuff. I think the tier set stuff, it looks like a little bit of an unforced error with how they're dealing with the two sets. Yeah, the rest of it looks fine, though. I'm happy with the rest of it. I hope that 11.1 is a lot more fun to play than 11.0 was, and I hope that more of my friends continue to play 11.1. How have you guys felt about these changes? Are you excited for the new season? Are you more of the same about the new season? Are you still feeling apathetic about the entire thing? Let me know down in the comment section, and I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.